The Great Train Robbery. Just the name sends shivers down your spine. It was a cold night in August 1963 when a gang of criminals pulled off one of the most audacious heists in British history. They stopped the Royal Mail train and made off with a king's ransom. This wasn't just a robbery, it was a direct challenge to the establishment. Newspapers called it the crime of the century. The robbery shocked the nation. How could something like this happen in Britain? People were both terrified and strangely thrilled. The robbers were daring and clever. The story of the Great Train Robbery became a legend, told and retold across the country. It was a story of daring, betrayal, and the long arm of the law. But beyond the headlines, it was about real people. The victims, the police, and the robbers themselves. Men like Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind behind the heist, and Ronnie Biggs, whose name would become synonymous with the robbery. The Great Train Robbery wasn't just about the money. It was a sign of the times, a crack in the facade of a changing Britain. It captured the public imagination, and its legacy continues to fascinate us today. Don't forget to subscribe to Faceless Narrative and hit the bell button for more intriguing stories. Every night, the Royal Mail train thundered across the British countryside, a symbol of tradition and reliability. It carried letters, parcels, and huge sums of money, connecting people and businesses across the nation. Its carriages held registered mail, often containing valuables. The train was a common sight, its deep red engine and carriages easily recognizable. People knew the schedule, the familiar sound of its whistle echoing through the night. It represented a sense of security. Little did anyone suspect it would become the target of an audacious crime. At the heart of this daring plot was Bruce Reynolds, a charismatic and ambitious criminal. Reynolds was a man of many talents, a thief, a gambler, and a natural leader. He had a vision for the robbery, a plan so audacious it seemed impossible. But Reynolds was a master planner, and he carefully assembled a team of specialists, each with their own unique skills. There was Ronnie Biggs, a small-time crook with a knack for getting things done. Charlie Wilson, a ruthless enforcer, ensured everyone followed orders. Roy James, an expert driver, would be responsible for the getaway. The gang was a mix of experienced criminals and ambitious newcomers, all drawn together by the promise of a massive payday. These men came from different backgrounds, but they shared a common goal: to pull off the biggest robbery Britain had ever seen. They were driven by greed, ambition, and a thirst for adventure. They saw the Royal Mail train as their ticket to a life of luxury and ease. The gang met in secret, planning every detail of the robbery. They studied the train's schedule, the layout of the tracks, and the security measures in place. They knew they had to be meticulous. One mistake could cost them everything. The plan was incredibly complex, requiring precise timing and a deep understanding of the railway system. They needed to stop the train at a specific location, a remote stretch of track in Buckinghamshire. To do this, they would tamper with the signals, forcing the train to halt. The gang set up a hideout at Leatherslade Farm, a secluded property where they could finalize their plans without attracting attention. They practiced their roles, rehearsing every aspect of the robbery. They even brought in an ex-railway worker to teach them how to operate the signals. The robbery required meticulous attention to detail. They prepared disguises, weapons, and even a canvas bag to carry the loot. They studied the routines of the train staff, learning their movements and schedules. Every detail, no matter how small, was crucial to the success of their plan. As the day of the robbery approached, the pressure mounted. The gang knew that they were playing for high stakes. If successful, they would become rich beyond their wildest dreams. But if they failed, they faced a lengthy prison sentence. The night of August 8, 1963, was dark and stormy, the perfect cover for a daring crime. The gang, disguised as policemen, put their plan into action. They used a battery-powered lamp to change the signal light to red, bringing the train to a halt. The train driver, Jack Mills, was confused by the unexpected signal. When he stepped out to investigate, he was met by the robbers, who overpowered him and the other postal workers. They uncoupled the high-value carriage, leaving the rest of the train behind. The gang moved quickly and efficiently. their movements practiced and rehearsed. They transferred 128 sacks of money containing banknotes worth millions of pounds from the train to their waiting vehicles. The robbery itself was over in less than 20 minutes. The robbers celebrated their success at their hideout, dividing the spoils and congratulating each other on their audacity. They had pulled off the unthinkable. They were rich, but their freedom would be short-lived. After the robbery, the gang made their escape to Leatherslade Farm. The atmosphere was tense. They were excited about their success, but also nervous about the manhunt that was sure to follow. The enormity of what they had done was starting to sink in. At the farm, they divided the stolen money. It was a king's ransom, more money than they could have imagined. But the joy of their success was short-lived. The pressure of being hunted, the fear of capture, began to take its toll. The gang had made a crucial mistake. They had planned the robbery meticulously, but they hadn't considered what would happen afterwards. They had no long-term plan for escape, no way to disappear with their loot. As the police investigation intensified, the gang members began to turn on each other. Suspicions arose, and the bonds that had held them together during the robbery began to fray. Their idyllic hideout was becoming a prison of paranoia and fear. The pressure of being hunted men began to take its toll on the gang. The carefree camaraderie they had enjoyed during the planning and execution of the robbery evaporated. Suspicions arose, and old grudges resurfaced. The once tight-knit group was now fractured, each man looking out for himself. The massive amount of money they had stolen, instead of bringing them together, drove them apart. Arguments broke out over the division of the loot. Some members, fearing capture, wanted to lie low and avoid attracting attention. Others, emboldened by their success, wanted to flaunt their newfound wealth. The cracks in the gang's unity widened when they realized that the police were closing in. They had left fingerprints and other clues at Leatherslade Farm, a careless mistake that would prove to be their downfall. The police were slowly but surely piecing together the evidence. The gang's carefully constructed world was crumbling around them. The dream of escaping justice and living a life of luxury was fading. They had become victims of their own success, the weight of their crime too heavy to bear. The police, led by the determined Detective Chief Superintendent Jack Slipper, launched a massive manhunt for the robbers. The eyes and ears of the nation were on the case, with every newspaper and radio bulletin following the investigation closely. The pressure on the police to catch the culprits was immense. The investigation took the police across the country, following leads and interviewing hundreds of witnesses. The breakthrough came when they discovered fingerprints at Leatherslade Farm, carelessly left behind by the gang in their haste to escape. One by one, the gang members were arrested. Some were caught in the United Kingdom, others were tracked down to foreign countries. The trial that followed was a media sensation, captivating the public's imagination. The audacity of the crime, the sheer amount of money stolen, and the colorful characters involved made it the biggest news story of the year. The Great Train Robbery had captured the public's imagination, and the trial provided a dramatic climax to the story. The nation held its breath as the verdicts were read out, and justice, albeit delayed, was finally served. The trial of the Great Train Robbers was a media spectacle. The public was captivated by the audacity of the crime and the colorful characters involved. The courtroom was packed with journalists and spectators eager to catch a glimpse of the men who had pulled off the crime of the century. The jury found most of the gang members guilty. They received lengthy prison sentences, a testament to the severity of their crimes. However, the story didn't end there. The Great Train Robbery continued to grip the public's imagination for years to come. Some of the robbers, most notably Ronnie Biggs, escaped from prison and lived as fugitives for years. Biggs became a folk hero to some, his exploits adding to the legend of the Great Train Robbery. However, for the victims and those involved in the investigation, the robbery was a traumatic event with long-lasting consequences. The Great Train Robbery marked a turning point in British criminal history. It led to significant changes in security measures, particularly within the postal service and railway system. The robbery highlighted vulnerabilities that criminals had exploited, prompting a reassessment of security protocols. The Great Train Robbery continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day. It has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, cementing its place in British folklore. The robbery continues to capture the imagination, a testament to its audacity and the enduring appeal of a well-executed heist. The robbery had a profound impact on British society, changing the way people viewed crime and security. It led to increased security measures, not just for the Royal Mail, but for businesses and institutions across the country. The robbery exposed vulnerabilities in the system, forcing authorities to adapt and improve. The Great Train Robbery also had a cultural impact, becoming a symbol of a changing Britain. The 1960s was a decade of social upheaval, and the robbery, with its daring and disregard for authority, seemed to capture the spirit of the times. The Great Train Robbery remains a captivating story of ambition, daring, and the price of freedom. It is a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us of the human capacity for both good and evil. The legend of the Great Train Robbery lives on, a reminder that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.